Hey, happy Tuesday morning. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I appreciate you being with me. We are continuing our study of the Olivet Discourse. We are focused at the current time on Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following. Now, of all of the parables in Matthew chapter 25, in my encounters and discussions with people who still hold to a futurist eschatology, I have to say that this particular parable, the parable of the gathering of the nations to, for the time of the harvest, the time of the judgment, it is, of all three of those parables in Matthew 25, it's the one that people appeal to the most. I have had individuals tell me, well, okay, yeah, Matthew chapter 25, 1 to 13, the parable about the coming of the Son of Man for the time of the wedding, I could see it has been admitted to me. I could see that might refer to the fulfillment of God's promises to Israel concerning the wedding. Okay, that may be possible. I've had a few individuals even admit to me that Matthew 25, 14 and following, the parable of the absent master, okay, it's parallel to Luke chapter 19, 11 and following. And yeah, okay, I have to admit that Luke 19, 11 and following applied to AD 70. But I've had them adamantly tell me there's no way in this world that Matthew 25, 31 and following applied to AD 70. Well, of course, in the first place, that's a very novel view. In the history of interpretation, virtually no one has taken that position. And so when a person is going to make an extraordinary claim, they've got to have extraordinary evidence. So when I have pressed these individuals, show me where it's different, their only response has been, well, obviously, Christ hasn't come with his angels and gathered all the nations. Well, as I pointed out yesterday, we have to understand this parable, all of Jesus' parables, in the context of the Hebraic culture in which it was told. The parable was not told from a pulpit in New York City or California or Oklahoma. It was told in a cultural context of Judaism, of the Hebraic religion. I have had people tell me, I'm not interested in any of that. I don't care. If I just can't read it and understand it like it reads, then I don't want anything to do with it. Well, as I have responded, we're not reading a newspaper from 21st century America. We are reading writings from first century Judaism. And if we forget that, if we overlook that, if we ignore that, we're almost doomed to misunderstand it and misapply it. Okay. I promised yesterday that we would today examine Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following within the context of the promise of the harvest. Now let's not forget, everyone agrees, everyone that I'm aware of, agrees that Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is the end of the age harvest. Now, it is generally argued that the end of the age that is under consideration is the end of the Christian age. Now, in the morning, on Wednesday, we're going to be taking a look at that assumption that Matthew 25, 31 and following is about the end of the Christian age, okay? So you don't want to miss tomorrow's video for sure. Is Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following talking about an end of time, end of the Christian age event? But for this morning, as a parable and as a prediction, first century prediction, of the end of the age harvest, then we have to examine that within the context of Matthew chapter 13. Now, having a lot of trouble with my voice this morning. I've been drinking a lot of coffee. I was out of town on Saturday, went to a what they call a racer's auction, and it was really, really, really cold, so I drank a good bit of coffee. I kind of got off of my personal limitations, but I'm paying for it. Anyway, in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus told a parable about a man who went out to sow, and the tares grew up. His servants asked him, should we separate the tares from the wheat? And he said, no, let them both grow together until the time of the harvest. And the time of the harvest he will send forth his reapers, and they shall gather them together. They shall separate the wheat from the tares. They shall gather the wheat into the barn, and the tares shall be burned up. Now, Jesus said, so shall it be at the end of the age. Now, he used a very distinctive Greek term, suntelia to aionion. I always pronounce it wrong, so you'll forgive me. And it depends upon the particular cognate that is being used. But the basic form of it is suntelia to aioniou, or aionion. And it means the full consummation. Soon means together. Telos means end. The final heaping up, if you please, of the end. This is the same end of the age term that the disciples asked about in Matthew chapter 24. When Jesus predicted the destruction of the temple, the apostles immediately asked, tell us, when shall these things be? What is the sign of your coming and the end of the age? As we have discussed many times, the apostles very clearly associated the destruction of the temple with the coming end of the age. The same end of the age that is found in Matthew chapter 13. Now, it's interesting to me that commentators try to delineate and divorce this term from all of Jesus' parables, which they admit refer to AD 70, or most of them they admit that. Kenneth Gentry admits that in Matthew 21, Matthew chapter 22, the parables there refer to AD 70. But he says in Matthew chapter 13, 39 and 40, and in Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, Jesus used this distinctive Greek term, suntelia to aionion, and he always uses that of the end of time. That is absolutely false. There is not a scintilla of evidence to support that. That is totally 100% presuppositional. By the way, I cover all of this and a whole lot more in regard to that distinctive Greek term in this book, We Shall Meet Him in the Air, the Wedding of the King of Kings. And do not forget, ladies and gentlemen, for the rest of this month, January 2022, U.S. orders only, if you go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, and if you order over $25 worth of material, you get 15% discount plus free shipping. So, anyway, I want you to notice that while I'm touching on suntelia to aionion in this video, there is a wealth of discussion of this term in this book that you're not going to find much of anywhere else. So, here in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus talked about, as he interpreted the parable, he said, the enemy that sowed the tares is the devil. Harvest is the end of the age. The reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels. They will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then when? At the Suntelia to Aionion. At the end of the age, which is the end of the age in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3, which the apostles linked to the destruction of the temple, at that time the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of the Father. Let the one who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, and I've already encountered it this week, all right, this brand new week. Here it is, Tuesday. I have had people argue with me privately that, well, in Matthew chapter 24, yes, indeed, the apostles thought that the destruction of the temple would occur at the end of the age. But they were clearly wrong, because Jesus didn't come in AD 70. And the end of the age did not come in AD 70. Now listen to me. Those people are assuming that the end of the Jewish age ended at the cross. That's a false presupposition. Their fundamental presupposition is the apostles were confused. They were ignorant. They were wrong to associate the fall of the temple with the end of the age and with Christ's coming. Were the apostles confused? Were they ignorant? Were they simply wrong? Well, remember, I've written a book on this, Waiting for the Parousia, were Jesus' apostles confused, available on the website. There's not another book like it anywhere that I'm aware of. Now, I'm out of time for today, and, I said that I would do something tomorrow. I'm going to defer that to Wednesday, because I want to do a proper exegesis of Matthew chapter 13, 39 through 43, and Daniel chapter 12. And I'm going to do that tomorrow. So, I'll see you on the flip side.